Good morning, afternoon or evening wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. Now, I've been asked by many of you to talk a little bit about brushes, what I use and how I use them. So hopefully I'm going to simplify this down into the very basics, because every artist will have their own way of working and their own brushes they use. So hopefully this will give you just a little bit of information and some guidance along the way. So I hope this will be useful to both newbies and painters with a little more experience. So what I'm going to do is to put this video into three categories. What is a watercolour brush and the various types, how I use my brushes and various brush strokes, and of course different makes of brushes and brands. So let's start with what is a watercolour brush. Now, the important thing to remember is that a watercolour brush is specifically made for watercolour painting. Now, I've often had students come to me for the first time and they brought along with them some acrylic brushes or oil brushes, you know, the hog's hair type with a very stiff bristle. Now, that is really unsuitable for watercolour. The hairs or bristles on a watercolour brush are much softer and are designed to hold a lot of paint and water. So these are the components that go to make up a standard number 12 round brush. The tip, or sometimes referred to as the toe, the bristles, belly, the ferrule, the crimp, and of course the handle, which should have the size stamped on it. Now, the bristles will normally come in three main types. Natural hair, which can include squirrel, goat, ox, badger, and probably the best of all is the sable, with the Klonsky sable being top of the range. In fact, he's not a sable at all, but just a small weasel found mostly in Siberia. And it's said that the cost per weight of the Klonsky sable is more valuable than the price of gold. And I'll leave it up to you regarding the ethics of using animal hairs for your brushes. But one thing for certain is you'll pay an awful lot more for them. Now, it's generally considered that a natural hair brush will hold more liquid, a little bit more springy and last longer. And I say it's generally considered. Next, you have the combination bristles, which will include a mixture of both natural hair and synthetic fibres. And they, again, are considered to sort of have the best of both worlds. Then finally, down the cheaper end, you'll have the synthetic brushes, which are usually made from nylon, polyester and prolene. Over the recent years, there's been a huge advance in the development of synthetic brushes. Sometimes they can even match the feel of natural hair brushes. So what should I buy? When you go into your local art shop, you can be confronted with a huge choice and it's difficult to know where to start. You'll see rounds, flats, riggers, filberts, fantails, swordliners, mops, hakes, turbots. Okay, I made that last one up. But the choice is huge. And the other thing which isn't helpful is that there isn't an international brush size standard. So one company's number 12 could be totally different to another company's. So I'm going to talk about what brushes I use, but first I'd just like to talk a little bit about price. So whereas that statement, you should always buy the best you can afford, is perfectly true, I do believe that you don't have to break the bank to get decent results. Now, you can pay for a basic student synthetic brush about the price of a paperback book, whereas a top-of-the-range Klonsky sable could cost you as much as a Shakespeare first edition, signed. So as you can see, the price range is vast. Now, this brush I've had for about 25 years and it cost about 15 UK pounds, and I still use it today, which is amazing really, because my habit of losing things is quite legendary. More of this brush later. Having said all that, please don't go down the really cheap route. I remember once I had a lady come to one of my beginner watercolour classes and she bought a pack from the local market, 12 artist watercolour brushes for £4.99. Now, I wouldn't say it was a cheap market, but they were selling counterfeit Primark goods. So, as you can imagine, they were rubbish. All the hairs fell out. So, you do get what you pay for. Okay, so in this section, I'm going to talk about what brushes I use and how I use them. For me, I like to keep things nice and simple, so I really only use 5 brushes. And out of those 5 brushes, this one, my number 12 round, I probably use for 75% of my painting. Because I like to work nice and quickly and spontaneously, I've learnt to do most things with this one brush because I don't want to be constantly looking and changing my brush. So I try to do as much as I can just with this fella. So with this brush I can paint fairly fine detail as well as large decent washes. It has quite a large belly.
A bit like you then.
Thank you. And it can hold a lot of watery paint. It's great also for getting those lovely dry brush effects. You can flick it, you can flick with it, splat with it, use it for petals. And it's great for painting foliage on trees. It's definitely an all-rounder and a brush that I couldn't do without. I often tell my students to use the biggest brush that you feel confident to use. So if I'm painting something like, say, some cottage windows, then I'll try and paint it with one quick large stroke rather than labouring for hours over getting every corner exact and precise. It just gives your painting a little bit more life and spontaneity. Next is another round brush, and this is a number 6. Sometimes I'll use a number 8, but I really don't see any point in having, say, a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. But there are times when just a little more detail is needed. Like my number 12, you can get a good variety of strokes. It's just really useful when you need to get in that little bit closer. Next is a 3/4 inch flat, and you can get these in all sizes ranging from 1/8 of an inch up to 2 inches and beyond. I often use this for my skies. You can twist it to get a different thickness of line. Also great for going around straight edges on buildings. Fence posts it's great for, and you can just use it for painting general large washes. Next is a mop, and I really only use this for wetting my paper when I'm painting skies and other large washes. As the name suggests, it holds a great deal of water and is just perfect for the job. Last but not least, I couldn't do without my rigger, and this is a number 3. Originally designed for painting rigging on ships, there really is none better for the job. Because of the long length of bristles, it holds a lot of water, so you can make a long, lovely, straight line. So it's just perfect for things like cables on buildings, and because of its springiness, it's the best brush ever for painting spindly branches and all kinds of trees. Just a word on brush care, because this is something I often do myself, but please try and avoid leaving your brush in your water pot. It will ruin and bend the bristles. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about brush brands and makes. Now, I know a lot of people have their favourites, brushes they've been using for years, and I'm no different. But the important thing to mention is that there's literally hundreds of brands out there, and I certainly haven't tried them all. So these are just ones that I've used and always found to be reliable. Winsor & Newton, De La Rowney, Rosemary & Co, Escoda, Da Vinci and ProArt. And we mustn't forget the American brands Silver Brush with their black velvet and Princeton with the Neptune range. If I've missed out your favourite, please put it in the comments below. I'd love to know what you use. So, what brand do I use? Well, I like to use... Yes, I have my own range of synthetic brushes, the Paul Clark series. They've been specially made for me by ProArt, who are a British company based in Skipton in Yorkshire. A York lad. And it was a ProArt brush that I bought 25 years ago, which, as I said, I still use today. If you're interested, they are available only from my website, link in the description below. Well, I hope you found today's little tutorial useful and you got something from it. As I said, please put down in the comments any brushes you like to use. For those of you who've visited my channel for the first time, I have plenty of step-by-step tutorials on all sorts of subjects. Again, link in the description. So please don't forget to do all the normals. Like, subscribe, it won't cost you anything. Leave a comment, and I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Take care now.